Because of that aloha for our public school system, that he is going to be here on the ground on Oahu for less than 24 hours. He flew in from Boston last night, and right after the conference, he has to be in Florida for another speaking engagement. So he'll spend more time in an airplane than he will actually on the ground here on Oahu. So, Ray, thank you for that as well. He is no stranger to Hawaii, as I mentioned. He truly is kind. He's made many visits to our classrooms. He has helped bring the framework of rigor and relevance in relationships to Hawaii's classrooms, as well as quadrant D leadership. A former teacher, principal, superintendent, became commissioner, the superintendent of superintendents in Vermont. He's worked for the Gates Foundation, was president of the International Center for Leadership and Education, and is now the Dean of the College of Education in Southern New Hampshire University. It is with our esteemed thanks and with great honor that we introduce Ray McNulty.
Thanks, Ray. And yeah, so we lost. Okay, so you have to be in it to win it, right? So it is a pleasure to be here, and it is a kind of a quick trip. I usually don't do those kinds of trips, but I do have a real fondness for this place, and I was so excited to hear Pat Hamamoto be honored this morning. It really was very important and very special, and she is a very special person who's done great things here in Hawaii. I'm here this afternoon I worked kind of a bit on this talk on the plane coming over and then taking it apart this morning and putting it back together. And I have to say this morning, Pasi's talk was just right on so many of the issues that I believe in. And I'm here really to talk about the future of education, where we need to move. And when I was talking with Daryl about a topic, a title to it, I said, you were right about what's wrong with education today. And I think that one of the messages I'm going to really push hard on this afternoon with you is for us to really focus on our strengths and on the things that we know we're good at and continue to focus on those. But one of the things that really drives for me a lot of the work I do is our biggest challenge. So when I go to places and people will say to me, oh, money's our problem. Some people I'll go to, they'll say it's the governor, it's the state board, it's everybody. I think our biggest challenge is the status quo. Right? That's what our challenge is. Our challenge is that status quo. And actually, this is one of my favorite cartoons. I use it a lot, so some of you that have heard me talk have seen this before. But the fact of the matter is that we as a system seem to really be beholden to what we have. And everything in the world is moving. And the slides this morning, when I was looking at, the improvements in some states, in some countries, they're just going, and we're staying and put or falling behind. Now that island later on is not Hawaii. Just thought I'd point that out. They just happen to be on an island, that's the way it is. But I have three questions I'm going to pose now, and I'll pose at the end of the talk. But the first is, how do we let ourselves get into the position of needing to reinvent our work? Like, how'd that happen? Why didn't we fix it? What was missing? And I think, many of the things that are missing are the issues around voice and trust, and having us, in the field be able to say things and talk and be professional communities. I mean, when we find great schools, it's not the state, it's not the federal government, it's people in the school. Okay? Another question is, why haven't we over the years been able to recognize that something hasn't been working and self-correct it? Why haven't we, as educators, sat around the table and looked at what's going on and say, we're not getting anywhere. or what we're doing is not getting us where we need to go, and let's do it. Now, one of the reasons, obviously, and I'll talk a bit about this, is that it's not what we usually do. We teach, and we work at perfecting the status quo. That's a challenge for us. I mean, we need to really think about these things. And what would it be like to work in a self-correcting, innovative system? What would it be like if you walked into your school and people were saying, you know, I came up with this idea and I think we ought to try it. Let's pull, you know, the faculty sit around and say, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's work on that idea. Let's drive that idea into the school. Let's talk to one of the students. Let's find out what their needs are. Let's get on that thing. That's, you know, that's a professional conversation that doesn't happen all the time. So here's where I'm going to take this talk. So I just wanted to put down the key questions that I want to come back to. And I want to also lay out some key messages. And I did this slide on the flight. So I want to talk about some things that I'm going to mention. I'm going to go over them very quickly, but as I go through my talk, I'll come back and you'll get a deeper understanding. Does that make sense? It's my lesson plan. So the first, there were some things that were nice to have in schools that's now absolutely essential. And one of them is the thing we're referring to as school voice. The voice of our students, the voice of our teachers, the voice of our leadership, talking together, listening to each other. It's critical. I'm going to talk about that. Innovation. I mean, in most schools that I've been to, people would say, oh, it would be nice to have somebody that would think creatively and be an innovator, but it wasn't necessary. Today it's necessary. I happen to believe that, I'm going to talk specifically a little bit about this, but we need to take advantage of some of the technology that's there for some things that we're doing that we're wasting a lot of time doing that we shouldn't be wasting that time doing. So technology has been able to give us things that can help our students, and actually they can do it outside of school and it can help them, and we need to make better use of that because there is no more time. We have to be more efficient with our time. Pasi said this morning that he used cooperation and collaboration. Collaboration is critical. Now, I'm going to give you a little example about collaboration, and it's one I've not shared before because I just was in a meeting the other day and we played with this, and actually at dinner last night I was talking about it. But you all know what a number 2 pencil looks like, right? We were brought up with them, right? So just think about that number 2 pencil for a minute. You all know the yellow, generally printed on it, little metal thing with the eraser. Now think if you had to build that all by yourself. All right, because just think about what has to be done to build a pencil. One silly little pencil. You got loggers logging these massive trees in Oregon. Then they're dragging all these trees out. That wood that they cut gets sent to be kiln dried, it's cut, they make a groove in it. While at the same time that's going on, people are in graphite mines getting graphite and all of that, and they're making that to put in the middle of the pencil, and they make that piece. And think of all the people working on this stuff, right? Then they put it together, it gets put together, and the people that get the little metal thing, they have to make the metal thing that holds the rubber, which is from rubber trees, and then they paint it, and somebody has to be responsible for painting it, and then put the name on it. Oh my God, that's a pencil. Think about educating a student. Think about all the connectedness, the collaboration, the cooperation to turn somebody's life, to impact somebody's learning. Right? It's about all kinds of, it's not about one person. It's about armies of people. So if you think about the pencil to that, it's like, this is so critical. Collaboration is absolutely critical. Cooperation, collaboration, working with other people. You can't just close a door and expect a person is going to educate that student to be the only person responsible for doing that job. And we can't work in isolation. But that's how we were trained. And that's one of the challenges we face. Last of these little points here is positive psychology, focusing on strengths. You know, one of the things that I think about is that we as a nation, and I'm not sure about the Finns, but we as a nation, we are negative. When we see something, a quality that's a negative quality in somebody, we fixate on that so much more than their positive qualities. And every child comes to school with some good things, some wonderful, unique talents. What we do is say, well, that's good you got those talents, we're going to fix the broken ones. And the fact of the matter is, we really should be focusing on their strengths. Because if we only focus on their weaknesses, at best we're going to have them have mediocre weaknesses, but we may not be able to build their strengths into something really wonderful and special. But isn't it important to focus on our children's strengths? We're so negative and adverse. We need to be thinking more positively. We need to start to really understand that focusing on people's strengths will lead us more likely in a happier place to be, a more thoughtful place to be. I want to talk, before I finish my talk today, I'll talk about this whole idea of a growth mindset for educators. I'm an educator, so I can say this. Sometimes we have like an Eeyore attitude. Like, oh no, world is coming to an end, you know. Stock market's down, where's my retirement going? I mean, it's just like, everything is, you know, it's like we don't, and here's in our jobs, we confront students to tell them, go ahead, try it, you can do it, I'm here to help you. Do we do it to our neighbors, teaching in each of the classes next door to us? I want to talk, before I finish my talk today, I'll talk about this whole idea of a growth mindset for educators. I'm an educator, so I can say this. Sometimes we have like an Eeyore attitude. Like, oh no, world is coming to an end, you know. Stock market's down, where's my retirement going? It's just like, everything is, you know, it's like we don't, and here's in our jobs, we confront students to tell them, go ahead, try it, you can do it, I'm here to help you. Do we do it to our neighbors, teaching in each of the classes next door to us? You know, we really need to focus on a growth mindset. I'll talk about that. And last, I thought about this morning after I had dinner with Pati last night, and this is kind of an interesting thing to say, having Finnish people, contingent, some of it's still here. But there is no finish line to this work, all right? As educators, we have to understand there's no finish line. Not the finish, but, you know, there is no end. I walk into schools all over this country. I'm doing a lot of work in Great Britain right now. People go, well, when's it going to be over? You know, when are we going to get it right? Okay, so there is no finish line. All right? So that, I wanted to just say, those are some keys I'm going to come back to before we wrap this up. And those of you that know my speeches that have heard me here or wherever I talk, I always give you my agenda. So I'm going to talk about 4 things and then weave those themes through it. A little bit complicated, more complicated than I'd like it to be for an hour, but I just only have a short time here, and I have a lot I want to put out there. And so I'm going to talk about the education landscape, and I'll tell you when I switch, right? So those of you know, I'm going to talk about the challenge, teacher agency, leave with some advice before we do the panel. So, the education landscape. In the world today, there is like a collision of all kinds of things happening in education. So the first is explosive growth of technology. You may not know what its impact is, or going to be, or whether it's, but here, look at this. This is what happens in 60 seconds on the internet. All right? So every 60 seconds, there's 168 million emails. Right? There are almost 700,000 Google searches. Do you think this has an effect on education at all? Well, here's what I can tell you, that when I started teaching, I had the Encyclopedia Britannica. And I basically, you know, if I wanted to know something about Iowa or Nebraska, I'd go to the end and find 6 pages, and that's all I needed to do. But this has a dramatic effect. Now, some people are afraid at times, and they think that, you know, that technology will replace teachers. It won't. But clearly, teachers who use technology will replace teachers who do not. And I know that that's definitely a fact. Some of you know this rigor relevance framework. And the only reason I threw it in there is that technology's impact has the greatest effect on the lowest level of learning, skill acquisition, right? And you as an educator, your best impact is in the areas of higher level thinking, adaptation, and application. That's what we need teachers for. We spend most of our time back on that, teaching very simple skills. That's because of the test. That's not where we need to be. We need to, you know, the teacher's value is in those areas. I didn't want to go into discussing the rigor relevance framework. I think it stands on its own, and for those, I'm not any smarter than anybody in this room. But when you put 2 or 3 or 4 teachers together and they start really thinking together about, you know, magic can happen. So that's really what you have to do. You can't let it go. Don't let the sucking sound suck the life out of you. Okay? Thanks.
I think this has been quite an exciting day with all the exchange of ideas, new ideas, and some of the ideas from the past that we were reminded of that worked really well. You know, the governor and I do talk about education, and sometimes I have to say he corrects me. I will say, oh, there's a great idea. We can start an initiative in education. And he'll remind me that, you know, that's top down. We don't want to do it that way. It needs to be organic. It needs to begin at the schools because we already have so many good things going on at the schools. But we need to empower our teachers, our administrators to do those things. They need to have the resources. So he's very committed to adding more to the weighted per pupil formula. We also talk about leadership. And leadership is what will help empower our schools. And that leadership, I think, all begins with all of us here. When we committed to take the time on a Sunday to learn and to look for better ideas, that's part of leadership. That's part of taking the initiative. And I think we all need to take the time to do that, to exercise that, and to take it to the next level of action. And sometimes that's the hardest to do. It's not always easy for me, but I think we all have to make that commitment. And maybe we can start with Failure Day, because I think out of Failure Day, we'll hear so much more about success than failure. So I'd like to see that happen in Hawaii. And thank you again for all your work in our school system and for our children and for our students. I think they are so fortunate. And I think we are fortunate in Hawaii. Despite our challenges, we do have great people here and we do have a great community. That's a belief I have, but we always need to work together and we always want to be better. So that's something so positive about Hawaii. Thank you.
I would like to say that on behalf of everybody that's in this room and on behalf of everybody in the state of Hawaii that is passionate about the delivery of education in this state, our grateful thanks to all of you for joining us today. The insight, the messages will not be wasted on any of us, trust me. And if any of you take Ray McNulty's invite to go to New Hampshire, I recommend you at least wait till May. That concludes our panel. I'm going to invite Roberta back up to close the conference. And again, on behalf of everybody, mahalo.
Thank you very much to our brilliant speakers today. Thank you to all of you for coming to share in what was presented. So now that the conference is over, what next?
First of all, you will all receive a conference evaluation through your email. Please complete it right away, as we truly value your input. Secondly, since we already have your email address, you will probably be hearing from us often in the future. And if you have not seen the film Most Likely to Succeed, we will start the screening right here in just a few minutes after the conference concludes. And Posse has agreed to stay on so that he will lead the discussion after the film. So if you haven't seen it, please do plan to stay.
I'll add to that we're already setting ourselves up for our third annual conference of the Education Institute of Hawaii. And that will be on January 14th, 2017, in the very spot that you're sitting in. And Tony Wagner has already committed, and he's one of the creators of the film Most Likely to Succeed, and the author of the excellent book of the same name, to be here and share his vision as we go forward with our striving efforts for empowering schools.
However, instead of waiting until next conference, we have a lot of work that really needs to occur right now. And to that end, the Education Institute is going to hold a forum on February 10th at Moanalua High School to actually look at the Every Student Succeeds Act and to think about what changes might be needed, what we might suggest to the department, to our schools, how we might better support our educators in the field. So please mark your calendars, February 10th, Moanalua High School at 6:30 p.m. So if we've whetted your appetite, we'd like to engage you further in the dialogue. Please come on out and bring your friends with you.
And finally, in closing, we have to, again, profess our heartfelt thanks to our guest speakers and those that have joined us. Posse Salber, Ray McNulty, Catherine Payne, and in addition to Diane Ravitch, the miraculous internet connection that we had to make that available during a day after the blizzard.
I also want to thank a couple of people who were in the background but who helped to make this possible. Thank you to all of our Institute board members and advisory council members, but I also want to give a big thank you to our executive director, Daryl Galera. And also I want to thank our executive assistant, Denise Morai, because she also has been instrumental in pulling this all together. Thank you again, everybody. Have a safe drive home. Continue the good work.
Those that need to know more about it, Daryl could explain it. But let me just rapidly go through these trends. Shifting policy environment. As an educator, we don't know what's going on. They just changed another law, they changed this law, all this happens. It's amazing. Leaps in the learning sciences. We know more about learning than ever before. Have we been using it? I don't know. If I look at what we're spending most of our time on, I don't think we are. This drive toward personalization. We've moved away, if you're following any of the literature, we've moved away from even talking about individualized learning. It's all about personalized. And I'm going to talk about that. The economic pressure on our traditional system. Do we really believe that our current system is the system of the future? It's an incredibly expensive system. It's incredibly expensive. These trends are driving a lot I want to call the noise that we're hearing as educators. And as I mentioned earlier, this widespread dissatisfaction with the status quo. That's what I know that's going on right now. And here's the thing. Almost everyone wants our schools to be better, but nobody wants them to be different. And the fact is they're going to have to be different before they're better. So I want to just show you to get a sense of how much change has gone on. I want you to watch this little video clip. The first minute can get a little boring, but then the last 5 seconds will make it different.
And now it's Bill Holland coming in and passing to our dream. Bill has millions joining the second place. And hoping to take the chicken flag here today. And as you can see, we've been in trouble with that Bill. Everybody standing by. The driver getting refreshed. Also getting updates on the track service. This guy's super keen to get back out there on the track. And there he goes.
A little bit of collaboration, cooperation. It's mind-boggling, but that first one in the 50s, think about how our school's very different from then. I'm not sure. And it doesn't certainly look like the Melbourne pits in 2013. See, I think we spent a lot of time, trying to build the future by perfecting the past. We work really hard at making what we're doing right now better. We spend a lot of time on that, and that's not where we need to be. See, I think learning itself has expanded way beyond our conceptions of teaching. I mean, there are more ways to learn than ever before. And we don't value them. We don't see it. There are states making some headway in it, and I'll talk about that. But, teaching is only one way to learn. How many of you have learned something since you've left school? Anybody? Isn't that interesting? At the university, we started a program called College for America, where it's all competency-based. And we value the skills that people from the workforce bring in. And if they can show a competency, they don't have to be taught it. It's like, why? Because, seemingly we need to start to value learning that doesn't happen in front of us. Not only that, when you look at the landscape, the schools that we are actually still designed to be in, we're at a time where we had a lot of people in the middle. The old bell curve. The family structure was very different. We are so diverse now. You see that? On this side, it's almost flat. We have more diversity in our system than ever before. That's why individualization is important. You can't teach a whole class. You can't teach half of the class. There is way too much diversity. So I was the chair, a year ago, I stepped down as the chair of the National Dropout Prevention Board. And when I was at the board, I built this slide. And I built it because of the problems we're having with dropouts. But I want to show you a critical flaw in our schools today. One that we're starting to address in several states. So if you want to think about this, the vertical is all the knowledge and skills you need for any 1 year in school. So first grade, stack up all the content. Second grade, algebra, freshman English. Along the bottom is the number of days. So I'm going to just pick a number, and I'm going to pick 180, because in the US, if you pick 180, you're close to every single state. And here's the thing, we give every kid in our school system 180 days to learn the content. Everyone gets 180 days. You get 180 days of first grade, 180 days of algebra. That's what we do. Does that make a lot of sense to you? We call these kids the on-pace students. They're the ones that need exactly 180 days to learn the content. Now, here's what I know. There are a lot of students that can do it in 60. And there are many that need more. They get very bored in our systems. It doesn't make sense the way we're designed. We fix time and content, and we pass students through this fixed time and content. And you're responsible for that work to be done with this critical flaw staring us in the face. Just think about it this way. My wife's a runner. And if we as educators designed a race the way we design our schools, it would go something like this. I'm just going to pick a half marathon, 13.1, is that right? 13.2, whatever it is. I'm not a runner. You can look at me and know immediately that you're not a runner. But, and let's say if we were running it, we would say, I could do a half marathon, okay? But if they said to us, you have to do it in 2 hours and 15 minutes, all right? Now, here's what would happen. We would have the elite runners get there within like 40 minutes. And we'd say, wait here. And then at the 2 hour and 15 minute mark, we'd say, cross. And they'd all step across. And then all the rest of us that were back over here, they would just say, well, you didn't make it. You failed. Or you get a C. You don't make it. It doesn't, the design doesn't make sense. At one time it did, it doesn't any longer. Does that resonate with you as educators? Do all of your children, like if you have infants, do they all walk at the exact same time? Like, yep, we all, no. See, I think in education, if we're focused on seat time, we're focused on the wrong end of the kid. And that's the design of our system. It's by time. And this has got to stop. It's not the right side. So I want to move, so that's the landscape. We are stuck in a system right now that is time-based, and it's not the right calculation anymore. It's not the right design. It doesn't really work for us. So let me talk about the challenge then. So if you think about what I just shared with you, most people will ask the question, what kind of education do we need at this moment in history? I mean, are we going to all run to Finland? Or are we going to run somewhere and we're just going to do what you do? Okay, because that's what we do. That's unlikely, but the conversation, every time I go somewhere, they say, well, what do we need? So people are looking for an answer. They want to know, like, that one piece up there, they want, oh yeah, that's the one. See, it made it. It's not. There's lots of things we have to be doing at the same time in order to make the puzzle work. There's not one thing. A lot of times government says, oh, it's going to be high-stakes testing. That will fix everything. Or this will fix everything. Or that will fix everything. That's not the issue. There's a lot of things we have to do. And a lot of the people I work with, we started to suggest that if we're going to touch the next generation of learners, we're going to have several pieces in place. So let me just briefly talk about those. The first is, I think we need to be able to deliver learning in more ways than we do now. We need to be able to deliver it in a hybrid fashion, in an online fashion, in a face-to-face fashion, in a blended fashion, and here's why. You might, if you're a really good writer, you might be able to do it all by yourself. And you can do it online at your pace and not need anybody. But if you struggle in math, you might need a teacher all the time. Or you might find that you like a little bit of both. We have a lot of students, we teach a lot of our coursework, both blended, hybrid, online, face-to-face. And what's amazing is we have students that say absolutely nothing in class, but when you give them an online environment and you put a board up and ask them to explain their thinking, they write like the most brilliant stuff you've ever seen. They don't like to talk in class about it. They'll let the others do that. But we give them the options. We give them options because that's what the world is about today. It's more of a personalized approach. That's it. Personalized. Well, what do I mean when I say personalized? Here's what we generally mean these days. Anytime, any pace, any place. We're currently working with a bunch of school districts that have some technology, and the students are they're doing work, they're spending 38% of their time outside of school doing work that's not even assigned to them, because it's fun. Because they feel like they're in control of their learning. You can't make your school day 38% longer, but if you get them involved where they want to spend time outside of school engaged in work, look at what you pick up. On top of that, it needs to be engaging. As some of you know, that when I was at the Gates Foundation when we did a study with Russ Qualier, and we asked 676,000 students, to give us one word to describe school. And you know what they said? Boring. Yeah, boring. And the thing is, the adults know it. Nobody seems to care about it. But when I'm bored, I shut down. They're bored, they shut down. Well, do you think they're all running around going, oh, there's a new standards, and we're going to get so excited, we can't wait to get to school, because there's going to be a new standards, and there's going to be tests, and it's going to be, no, they don't see it as exciting to them. They don't see it as exciting at all. And last, I think, and I'm convinced at this point in time, and I'll show you why, we need to start to think about competence. We need to start to think about education that's competency-based. Several states have already taken the step in that direction. I happen to live in one of the states, the state of New Hampshire, which is one of the leading states. They abolished the Carnegie unit. They said there is no more time. If a student can demonstrate that they can do something, you must give them credit. Now, they're not alone. This is a map that's 2 years old, I think, 2014, February. So, the state of New Hampshire, Maine, Iowa, Colorado, Arizona, and Oregon are what we would call advanced states. They've wiped out many of their time requirements, and they said it's not about time, it's about competence. Can they show you, can they do it? If they can do it, you give them credit. They don't have to do it in front of you. You don't have to be the instructor. All right, and then you start to look at other states. The green states are what they call developing states. And you can see that there's a trend. There's a heavy movement toward competence. I'm not sure what Hawaii is doing. I didn't have time. It's an emerging, I think they might be having some conversations about that because they're moving to that. The state of New Hampshire, where I am, they do not do state testing the way state testing is done in other states. Students have to provide to they're tested on competence. They must show competence in certain areas. They have portfolios. That's what they do. They show their work. That's interesting, and but when I start talking about this and say anytime, any place, any pace, hybrid, blended, online, face-to-face, all that, educators get a little squirrely. They go like, you're nuts. We can't do that. So I want to show you a video, and then I'll explain why I showed you this video. Oh, here it is.
This is the hollow head. Actually, at the moment, it's a perfectly normal head of Charlie Chaplin, but wait, as it comes round, you'll see, or will you, that it's hollow. The back of it, coming round now, is actually a hollow mask. It appears to rotate in the opposite direction, and amazingly, the nose sticks out, although it's actually sticking in. Coming round now is the normal, correct as it were, face, and wait again as it comes round, and you'll see this extraordinary thing like Jekyll and Hyde. Both the noses stick out because it's so unlikely that a nose sticks in that the face is hollow. So you see it as convex, although it's in fact concave.
Alright, so there's no trick to this. It is a mask. You can get it on YouTube, or you can get anything like that. You can get me on YouTube too. It's on that laptop. Okay, why did I show you that? I was talking about all these things we need to do in education, and then I show you this stupid thing. So I showed you it for two reasons. One, it's pretty cool. And second is, here's what happens. You as a person look at people every single day. You look at faces. And your brain says, that's a face. It has all the characteristics. It talks to the eyes. It says, yep, that's a face. What happens when that mask comes around, your brain is looking at it and it says, this is a face. It should not look like this. Here's what it looks like. And it makes you see it the way you're looking at it now. Now, I've stared at this thing. I watched it about 30 times one day on a flight to Chicago. I kept saying, it's a mask, it's a mask. And my brain would not let me see it as a mask. You know, there's like a half of a nanosecond where I can almost see it as a mask and then it goes away. Now, here's the thing. You're all educators. You see schools every day. Schools to you happen first grade, second grade, third grade, 180 days. High school has math class, science class, social studies class. I run my class. We have breaks in between. We have holidays. This is what happens. And you are an expert at looking at schools. And your brain will fight with you when people like me and others say, that's not going to work any longer, because we are in a different place. Very rarely does massive transformation come out of the field in which the experts live. The people when, in the days when they used to cut ice out of lakes to keep food cold, the ice cutters would do it, they were not the people to invent ice factories. Because what happens is we define ourselves by what we do. We teach. See, they define themselves by what they did. Cut ice. We just get ice. So somebody said, no. Then the ice factory people were not the ones that made refrigerators. It's another group of people. They didn't realize they were in the business to just keep food cool. They kept thinking they were in the ice business. They thought they were in the ice factory business. And that's not what they were in. We seem to think we're in a teaching business. And we may be, but I happen to think it's more about learning. And there's lots of ways to learn. There's lots of changes that we have to think about deeply. And it's going to be hard for us to do that. And if I have my Boston accent in, it's going to be hard for you to do it. All right? It's going to be really hard. Very hard. Does that make at all any sense to you? I mean, just think of this quote. Here's a quote. Look at this. Knowing with certainty that someone has mastered a discipline means it shouldn't matter how the person got there or what school they attended. At that point, traditional education's monopoly on delivery would end. And America would see a myriad of new models and providers of education. Just think of this. I worked at the Gates Foundation. Bill Gates could not be the technology director in any school, public school district in the United States because he has no degree. But he has the skill. I think. I mean, I'd like him to take over some schools' technology system. You see, these are the problems we have. We seem to honor certain kinds of learning over others. I happen to work for a school that is one of the largest online providers. And a lot of people, online, that's for jokes. Well, IBM trains most of its people online, and so don't most companies nowadays, and it's pretty amazing what you can do online. It's a different business. Not only that, I like to talk at times about this. Like, what do we mean by learning? Like, what's learning? I throw this question out when I do a whole day with people and say, all right, sit around and, you know, you have a school, if you're a principal, do you have a common definition of what learning is? What is it? Because that's our job. Really, what is learning? I'm not looking for an answer, but it's something we ought to think about. I kind of play with it in a funny way. I think about learning like this. I think learning is about productive learning. It's like when you learn something and you want more. Not like you learned it and you just let go of it, but when you want more. And you do it, you're willing to do it on your own, and it's deep. And I don't think you need to do a whole bunch of it to really start to really get real excited. I mean, I watch students that are so deep into studying certain things, and they just go off and they got it. I mean, I've taught a lot of classes in my life, and the students have left and they've done well, and they never remember a thing. But I go, oh yeah, you got an A. Yeah, well, good. You know, I took French for many years. The only thing I can do is, you know, I can say that I remember the very first lesson. That's about it. You see, I think this generation is about the rise of the self-learner. Like, how do we get students to not need us? Because they're going to face more unknown in their life than known. What do they need to be self-learners? And this is a kick I've been on for a while now. Everyone says, well, what's the 21st century skill? One of them is just be a learner, be a self-learner. And well, just think about this deal. We give every kid in every classroom a teacher that tells them all the things they need to do every day, all the time, from kindergarten through the end of 12th grade. Then when we want them to leave, our missions all say we're creating a lifelong learner. Well, when did they get to learn on their own? When did we have gradual release? Right? When did we ever think about that? So I've been doing a lot of thinking about it, and I think we should think a little bit. This is kind of, again, I'm being a little bold here with you, but a little crazy. I spend a lot of time talking to people, and people will say, well, how should we teach this stuff? And I think it's the wrong question. I think you as an educator today, in the world we live in, with what we have, I think instead of thinking about how you should teach something, we as educators should look at our content, look at what we want students to learn, and we need to think like this. Like, if I had to do this today, how would I learn it? Like, what would I do? How would I learn? You know, if you want to pick a Common Core standard, pick it, and then say to the students, we got to figure this out. I have no idea what this is about. What should we do? What do you think they'll do? What will they do if you give them a standard and you say, I don't know anything to do? What would likely those students do? They'll quickly get their phone out and Google it. And then they'll say, I got a video, you want to see the video? No, I want to say, I think I can talk to this person over here. Okay, you three get together. You look at that one, you look at this website. You guys back there, you're seeming to be confused. I'll come over and help you out. But the fact of the matter is, we start off by teaching them everything without even letting them figure out if they can learn it themselves. That's crazy, McNulty. I know, but I'm just saying. That's what the kids say to me these days. Just saying. So, I'm going to try to do this next two slides real quickly because I want to make sure I don't run over very far. I still have a good time, but I want you to think about the changes that have gone on. And I don't know how many people know Peter Drucker. He's a former management guru, So in 1995, he said this. He said, in the next 20 years, the power will shift to the customer for the simple reason the customer now has full access to information worldwide. What did he mean? He meant basically that if you went out to buy a television in the last year, you didn't walk in and ask somebody, show me your televisions. You went in with either your phone or a printout and you said, this is what I'd like, this is how much I'll pay for it, and they have it cheaper up the road, so if you can match their price, I'll buy it from you. You were the consumer was in complete control. If you don't believe me, go hang out in Best Buy on a Saturday with a cup of coffee and just watch people coming in and going out. They know what they want, they go in, and pretty much they could have monkeys go grab all the boxes and bring them out, because it's pretty, 90% of people do that. So, I have to, before I cue this next bit, so I'm going to have a teacher share with you something about self-learning. And it's one of your own, but I don't think he's still teaching here. So it's Jordan Dollier did this TED Talk. And I've used this all over the country. So I want to give you a piece of one of your own teachers in Hawaii talking about. He makes the case for being a great teacher, but he starts off by making the case to be a great uncle to his niece. And then he says it better than I could say. And then I'll tie that little piece back up. So listen to Jordan.
I've always wanted to be a fantastic uncle. As the youngest of 3 brothers, with one brother who's 4 and another brother who's 8 years older than me, I always kind of figured I wasn't going to have kids first, or so I hoped. And when my first niece was born, I made sure to take every opportunity I could to do what I thought a fantastic uncle would do. Now, one such opportunity, I was in the back lanai at my parents' house, and I was sitting with one of my brothers, and my niece, Haley, who was 5 years old at this time, that's her, she came up to me, and she tapped me. She said, "Uncle Jojo." I'm Uncle Jojo. She said, "Uncle Jojo, would you please get me some juice?" And I thought to myself, of course I can get you some juice. I want to be a fantastic uncle. I'll get you all the juice in the world. I'll make you just rain juice upon you. Of course I'll get you some juice. So I stood up. And as I stood up, I felt a tap on my shoulder. And I looked and it was my brother. And he said, "Hey, where are you going?" And I thought, well, I'm going to go be a fantastic uncle. I'm about to get my niece some juice. And he said, "Well, do you think she could do that for herself?" And I hadn't thought of that, so I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, "Well, really, what does it take to get juice?" And I said, "Well, I'd have to go inside, and I'd have to open the refrigerator, and I'd have to, pick up a packet of juice, and, unscrew the cap, and, give it to Haley." And he's like, "Okay. Now, do you think she's capable of doing that herself?" And I said, "No, I want to believe in my niece. I want to be a fantastic uncle, so of course she could do that by herself." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, then why would you take that experience away from her? And why would you make her depend on you to get juice?" And I had not thought of it like that. And as an educator, I've found that sometimes in my drive to do what I think a fantastic educator would do as much as I can, sometimes I've taken away meaningful experiences from my students. Because sometimes what we do for others is a tacit statement of what we believe they can't do for themselves.
I just think he makes a really profound point. He makes the profound point that we're always doing everything for them and expecting them then to be learners on their own. Or we're doing things and sending them the message that you really can't learn by yourself. You need me. You need me. And I'm not sure we think of our jobs as a way of trying to figure out how do we get the student not to need me. So one day I tweeted out, "A teacher who teaches a student to learn without them prepares the student for success in the 21st century." They need to be able to be self-learners. The most powerful thing we could do. That's what you are. You all, so many people don't put their hands up because you've learned things since you've left school. But I mean, it's like, when you learn something on your own, you will never forget it. But when somebody just gives you something and you go through this routine and then you take the test and leave, you can ask them a question a half hour later and they'll look at you like, "I have not a clue." Because we know from the neurosciences that if you learn it on your own, it's hardwired. You won't lose it. You will not lose it. So one of the things I suggest to people, I'm not going to go into any detail on this obscure looking thing, but We should be designing our lessons so that at the very bottom, that they're designed first for students to learn on their own. You see that person at the top? That's the teacher. That's the most expensive resource, the most brilliant resource in mind we have. That, for the students that need the one-on-one, and they can't get it if they go that way, they get to the teacher. Those are the ones that need the teacher. We do it the other way. We give them all the teacher first, and some of them are sitting there going, I know this. And someone's saying, I've learned it, but I'm not sure, I didn't learn it myself, and I won't be able to hold on. Does that make sense to think about flipping it around? Now, what I would suggest is that you don't just go to school tomorrow and say, I'm going to do this way. Find a point in your units where you can look ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to try something different with this unit. I'm going to see about redesigning it in a different way. Design it so they can learn it on their own first, and then have them help each other. There's tons of research that suggests it works much better. I would normally go through a long routine, and I'm going to pass on that because I want to get the teacher agency. Does that make sense? Some of what I was just sharing with you, it's like the way to think about this work. We have to think a little differently about it. It's a different world. It's like that Australian pit crew. It's a very different place. So, I oftentimes struggle with the idea that we as educators, we need to take control. So many of us have these feelings like, I don't have enough time to do this work. I might lose control of my class if I let that happen. We are awful at trying to take risks. And we all know Carolyn Dweck's work, right? About fixed and growth mindset. We seem to have a fixed mindset. Like we're helpless. We have no control. We're controlled by outside things. And we particularly have a sense of a nervousness around policy. When I talk about these things, most of the time people will say to me, we can't do it, policy won't let us. Here's a tip. Former commissioner, worked with the legislature. Policy is the last thing to change. Policy doesn't change first. It goes like this. You have to change a practice that gets results that informs policy to change. Policy won't change until you do something. So then you could say, well, it's a chicken and egg, we don't know what to do. Look, you do. Yeah, I know you can do it. There are some things we just need to do. So we have to adopt an attitude as a faculty, as a group, as a school. Which person up here do you want to be? The person on, I got to do it this way, you're right? Which is, there's nothing I can do about my future. Why bother? Everything happens to me. They tell us everything. Or are you the person that looks at these things and says, I make things happen. I'm here for the kids, and I will make things happen. Look at what I can do. You see, you have to really believe that your talent and your passion can make a difference. You can't use excuses from the outside. Do we actually actively seek out new ways to do things and improve our work? As a team. You were hearing lots of conversations this morning in Finland. They work as a team. Right? Do you and your peers invest in adult learning? Is it about, because here's the deal, we're talking about student learning. It's not going to get any better until the adults figure it out first. It's about adult learning first. It's about us. And you need to be the agents of the change, not the objects of the change. And when we see great schools, it's because those people in the school have figured it out. As a team, they pull together and they make good things happen. Like I said earlier, we push our students. We try to get a growth mindset for them. Right? We say things like, go ahead, try it, I'm here to support you. Do we do that as a faculty to each other? right? Where's that same level of support for our professionals? What are you doing in your school to get together and say, look, we've got to take this on. Take what Passy was talking about this morning and go through his book and find some things, some key strategies, and as a faculty, pull together. This is what we're going to do for our kids in this school, because we're in control. That's really where we need to be. Now sometimes, you know, some people get hurt during some of these experiments, and they need support, you know. I'm not going to say that everything works well. You heard failure. You heard things about failure. You'll fail. Things will have to get better. But a growth mindset is critical if we're going to make the changes we need. And it's a growth mindset for the adults, not for the kids yet. It's for us. Yeah. I'm talking to the choir here because, you know, this is Sunday and you're here. Right? So we got to get over to that side. And, you know, when I was writing my book, when I wrote it, and I particularly focused on a bunch of schools that were doing great things, you know, the focus is it's not us against them. It's not you against the students and you against anyone else. It's like, you're in control. Take the school and pull the professionals together and focus on what needs to be done. So there's 4 elements, and I'm going to do them rather fast. According to my time, I still have 8 minutes, even though I'm getting pressure from Ray. Because he said I could do an hour, and I'm doing an hour. There's 4 elements that you need to drive into a school to get this work done. First is, you know, as educators, we have to think about modeling. We have to think about, you know, we encourage students with growth mindset. We should say to other faculty members, you know, I'm going to be doing this. I really am not sure if this is really, I'm going to do a great job. Can you watch me and let's videotape me and let's see if we can talk about, am I doing a good job? Am I getting the right message across? You know, nothing's stopping us from working with each other to make great things happen. You need to create space for new ideas in your building, in your school. We have makerspace at the university now. I've been going into schools where they have makerspaces for their school, for their educators. They get together, they talk about it. So I built this slide on the flight coming over. So it's not really fancy because I'm not the fanciest of slide makers, but yeah, little word data. In every school we use data. We take data. And if we take data, what it really gives us is information, right? But then if we add synthesis to the data, we get knowledge. If we add to knowledge experience, we get judgment. So as professionals, you start creating some judgment. But then, if we add intuition, like, you know, I got a funny feeling, we get wisdom. And with wisdom, if we take our wisdom and we add passion, we get art. That's where I want my kids to be. And you see, I think if you take those upper 2 levels of this, that's about leadership. That's about leadership, educator leadership. It's, you know, it's not just looking, anybody can look at data and get data results. How can you get it to the point where it becomes art? How can you get it to the point where it becomes incredible wisdom? So you've got to have experienced people. You've got to have conversations. You've got to have collaboration. Those are so critical. We need to build in time for self-reflection. People need to talk about the work. And formative feedback, let's just say it this way, you heard a lot about that, right? Making new learning formative is critical. That's for us, adults. Let's try some things. Let's not hold it against our people. So let me, hopefully that piece about agency is critical. So let me close with a couple of pieces of advice. So this is my buddy Russ Quaglia, who I think is probably one of the leading qualitative researchers in the world, doing tons of work all around the world. Russ has been driving this whole issue of school voice. And here's what Russ teaches us. And this is his slide, so I want to make sure I give him credit for it. He says there's three things that drive this whole idea of voice. First, we have to listen. We have to listen to our students. We have to get good data from them. Next, we have to learn from what we hear and not just dismiss it. And if we do that, we clearly will lead. So it's about seeking out information, if you're a principal, from teachers and students. It's about understanding what people say. And it's about taking some action on it. When we do those things, we create something that Hase talked about this morning. It was one of the things that I wrote down. He talked about trust. You have to have a culture of trust and respect in the school. And if students don't see that they're a partner in their learning, and teachers don't see that the same thing, they're a partner in the leadership of the school, good things don't happen. Now, some people can say this is really soft and mushy. It's a fact. And last, you'll share responsibility if you deal with this stuff. Let's give you a quick look at some of this. We issued a teacher voice report. We're getting ready to issue the 2015 report. But look at this. 59% of teachers feel uncomfortable offering their opinions. You can't have a workplace where that occurs. You all have to have a valuable voice in the school to get the school to work well. 48% of teachers feel they communicate effectively. That means 52 don't. You've got to be talking to the other teachers. You've got to know what's going on. You've got to share information about your students. That's how we improve our system. That's why collaboration and cooperation and trust are so critical. You know, I know that some people can argue about some things, but one of the things Hattie basically said was, we do a lot of stuff that doesn't really matter much. Right? So this is about homework. What Hattie basically said is if something doesn't have an effect of about 0.4, which 0.4 means that for a year of school you get a year of success, if it doesn't have an effect size of that, we shouldn't be doing a lot of it. So homework has an effect of 0.29, meaning that, and you heard this morning from the Finns that that's not that critical, right? Look at some of these things. Teacher relationships, it's a 0.72. Feedback, clarity. Look at clarity. Just being clear with your students has an effect size of 0.75. And micro-teaching, meaning you videotape yourself teaching and then you watch it. And you do little lessons. And you keep getting feedback from friends and neighbors. These are game changers in our work. The research is there. Hase was absolutely right. It's there. We just have to use it. So I go back to my questions and just say them to you again. Right? How do we let ourselves get in a position of needing to reinvent our work? We know enough things we need to be doing. It's about us putting our minds together. And why haven't we been able to recognize when things haven't been working well? Right? And wouldn't it be exciting to live and work in a school that has a self-correcting, innovative mindset, where when you start talking about lessons at faculty meetings, you say, I don't think I got to them in this lesson. Can some of you give me some help? Let's talk about this. Let's have the professionals on your faculty work as a team. What a powerful message you would send from the state of Hawaii to all of the children in this state, how much you really care about them because you're willing to work together and drive the changes that are needed. That's in my life, it's kind of like, I think about this, that's how you get to the epic win. Right? That's how you get to the epic win. You don't get there by many other steps, but other than working together in very profound ways and using what we already know about what great instruction and learning should be like. So thank you very much. I really appreciate all your time. Thank you.